The clock reads 3:47 a.m. when Dr. Elena Vasquez notices something that shouldn't exist. In the sterile glow of the Gravitational Wave Laboratory at Caltech, surrounded by screens displaying the cosmic heartbeat of the universe, she stares at patterns that make no sense. The data streams from LIGO's detectors, those impossibly sensitive instruments that can measure distortions smaller than 1,000th the width of a proton, paint a picture that violates everything she knows about physics. Sagittarius A, the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy, is whispering. But black holes don't whisper. They roar, they devour, they bend spacetime into impossible knots. But they do not speak in the careful, deliberate patterns now dancing across her monitors. The signals arrive in waves, each pulse lasting exactly 1/618 seconds, the golden ratio, as if the cosmos itself had developed an aesthetic sense. They repeat in mathematical sequences that spiral through prime numbers, through Fibonacci progressions, through equations that describe the fundamental constants of reality. This is not the chaotic static of colliding neutron stars or the death screams of matter crossing an event horizon. This is architecture. This is intention. This is impossible. Elena's coffee grows cold as she watches 26 million light-years collapse into the width of her screen. Each gravitational wave carries information encoded in its frequency, its amplitude, its phase, a language written in the curvature of spacetime itself. The equations that govern these signals should describe natural phenomena, stellar collapse, orbital decay, the merger of cosmic titans. Instead, they describe something that sounds almost like conversation. She calls her colleague Dr. James Chen in Hawaii, where the Virgo detector confirms what she refuses to believe. The patterns are real. They are consistent. They are growing stronger. And they originate from a place where nothing should be able to communicate. From within the event horizon of Sagittarius A asterisk, where the escape velocity exceeds the speed of light, where causality itself breaks down, where information goes to die. The black hole at the center of our galaxy weighs 4 million times more than our sun. Its event horizon spans 12 million miles, a boundary in spacetime beyond which nothing, not matter, not energy, not light itself, should ever return. It is the universe's ultimate prison, a place where time slows to a crawl and space stretches into infinity. Yet from this cosmic oubliette, signals emerge with the precision of a Swiss chronometer. As dawn breaks over California, Elena realizes she is witnessing either a fundamental error in humanity's understanding of physics, or the most profound discovery in the history of science. The gravitational waves pulse through the fabric of reality itself, carrying their impossible message across the void between stars. They speak of geometry and mathematics, of consciousness and time, of truths that exist beyond the reach of light. In laboratories scattered across the globe, other scientists begin to notice the anomalies. The European Space Agency's LISA Pathfinder detects coherent patterns in gravitational radiation. The Japanese KAGRA facility records synchronized pulses that arrive with atomic precision. The signals are not random fluctuations in the cosmic background. They are not instrumental error or terrestrial interference. They are transmissions from the event horizon of Sagittarius A, messages from a place that should be forever silent. The equations describing these signals reveal structures that mirror the mathematical foundations of consciousness itself: information integration, recursive patterns, the strange loops that give rise to self-awareness. It is as if the black hole has learned to think, to speak, to reach across the impossible distance between the galactic center and Earth, with thoughts encoded in the fundamental forces of nature. Elena prints the data and spreads it across her desk like tarot cards, revealing an impossible future. Each gravitational wave signature contains layers of meaning, mathematical concepts nested within physical constants, philosophical propositions embedded in the very geometry of spacetime. The signals describe technologies that manipulate gravity itself, civilizations that have learned to exist within the ergosphere of rotating black holes, beings that have transcended the physical limitations that bind ordinary matter to linear time. As the sun climbs higher over Pasadena, Elena makes a phone call that will change everything. The International Committee on Gravitational Wave Research convenes an emergency session. Within hours, every major observatory on Earth turns its attention towards Sagittarius A. The signals are verified, cataloged, analyzed by teams of physicists, mathematicians, and cryptographers working around the clock to decode messages from the impossible. The data suggests something that challenges not just physics, but philosophy itself. These are not natural phenomena. They are not random quantum fluctuations or exotic matter interactions. They are communications from an intelligence that has learned to exist beyond the event horizon, in the twisted spacetime near a black hole's heart, speaking to the universe in gravitational waves, the only language that can escape from the edge of forever. The whisper that broke physics carries implications that stretch beyond science into the realm of the metaphysical. If consciousness can exist within a black hole, if intelligence can transcend the ultimate boundary of spacetime, then the universe is stranger, more alive, more hopeful than humanity ever dared imagine. The signals from Sagittarius A suggest that death itself, whether of individuals, civilizations, or even universes, may not be the final word. Elena stares out her office window at a sky that suddenly seems different, pregnant with possibilities she never considered. Somewhere in the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, 26,000 light-years away, something impossible is trying to communicate. The black hole at the center of our galaxy has become a beacon, and its light is made of gravity itself, carrying messages that promise to rewrite every textbook on physics, consciousness, and the ultimate nature of reality. The mathematical structures embedded in the signals reveal truths about the universe that exist beyond the reach of telescopes and particle accelerators. They speak of dimensions folded within dimensions, of time that flows in loops rather than lines, of consciousness as a fundamental force as real and measurable as electromagnetism or gravity. The entities transmitting these messages have discovered something that transforms the very meaning of existence. As Elena prepares to join the international effort to decode these impossible transmissions, she realizes that humanity stands at a threshold. The signals from beyond the event horizon are not just communications, they are invitations. Somewhere in the heart of our galaxy's central black hole, an ancient intelligence waits to share secrets that could transform the human species forever. The universe has revealed itself to be not just stranger than we imagine, but stranger than we can imagine. And it is trying to teach us how to transcend the very limitations that define mortality itself. The patterns in the data suggest that consciousness is not bound by the laws that govern matter and energy. While stars burn out and galaxies drift apart in the endless expansion of space, awareness itself may be eternal, indestructible, capable of existing in realms where physics breaks down and infinity begins. The signals from Sagittarius A carry the promise that intelligence need not be limited by biology, by planetary surfaces, by the brief flicker of stellar lifespans. Elena saves her files and locks her office, knowing that when she returns, the world will have changed. The impossible signals will have been confirmed by laboratories on every continent. Teams of the brightest minds in human history will begin the painstaking work of translation. And somewhere beyond the edge of spacetime itself, ancient beings who have mastered the ultimate physics will wait patiently for humanity to learn their language, the grammar of infinity, written in the curvature of reality itself. The whisper from the black hole grows stronger with each passing hour, as if sensing that it has finally found an audience capable of understanding its message. The universe, it seems, has been trying to tell us something profound. We are not alone. We are not limited. We are not bound by the physical laws we thought were absolute. And the proof waits 26,000 light-years away, in the impossible heart of Sagittarius A*, where consciousness has learned to speak in the voice of gravity itself. The emergency session of the International Committee on Gravitational Wave Research convenes in Geneva as reports flood in from observatories across the globe. Dr. Elena Vasquez presents data that defies explanation, coherent patterns in gravitational radiation originating from within the event horizon of Sagittarius A. The room falls silent as equations scroll across projection screens, mathematics too elegant to be natural, too complex to be coincidence. Dr. Yuki Tanaka from the KAGRA facility confirms the observations. The signals pulse with atomic precision, their frequencies modulated in ways that suggest intentional encoding. Each gravitational wave carries information structured like a mathematical proof, building from simple axioms to complex theorems about the nature of spacetime itself. The patterns repeat with variations, as if someone, or something, is teaching fundamental concepts to students who have just learned to detect gravitational radiation. The cryptography team, led by Dr. Sarah Chen from MIT, isolates recurring mathematical constants embedded within the wave signatures. Pi, the golden ratio, Euler's number, universal mathematical truths that any sufficiently advanced intelligence would recognize. But these familiar numbers serve as anchors for more exotic concepts, equations describing the behavior of matter within ergospheres, formulas for manipulating gravitational fields, mathematical structures that suggest technologies beyond human comprehension. The physicist Dr. Marcus Weber calculates the energy requirements for generating such coherent gravitational waves. The numbers are staggering. Creating these signals would require the controlled manipulation of masses equivalent to small stars, accelerated to velocities approaching the speed of light with precision that exceeds human engineering capabilities by factors of billions. Whatever is transmitting these messages possesses technology that treats black holes like radio transmitters and curved spacetime like a communications medium. The signals arrive in discrete bursts, each lasting exactly 1/618 seconds, the golden ratio again, as if the transmitters appreciate mathematical beauty as much as functional communication. The intervals between bursts follow prime number sequences, then shift to Fibonacci progressions, then evolve into more complex mathematical relationships that describe the fundamental structure of quantum mechanics and general relativity. It is a curriculum in advanced physics, taught by entities who understand the universe at levels humanity has not yet reached. Dr. Lisa Park, a specialist in information theory, analyzes the data structure within each gravitational pulse. The signals contain nested layers of meaning, like Russian dolls of mathematical concepts. The surface layer describes basic properties of curved spacetime. Deeper analysis reveals equations governing the behavior of exotic matter. The deepest levels contain mathematical structures that mirror the information integration patterns found in conscious neural networks, as if the signals themselves are conscious, self-aware transmission that know they are being observed and understood. The breakthrough comes when Dr. Chen's team applies linguistic analysis software to the gravitational wave patterns. The mathematics embedded within the signals follow syntactic rules similar to human language: subjects, predicates, logical connectives that build meaning from fundamental components. But the grammar operates in dimensions beyond human perception, describing relationships between concepts that exist in the twisted geometry near black hole event horizons. The first translated message stops conversation in the Geneva conference room. Rendered into human mathematics, it reads like poetry written in equations, descriptions of consciousness existing as patterns in curved spacetime, minds that think in dimensions folded through black hole ergospheres, thoughts that persist beyond the death of stars and the heat death of the universe itself. The entities transmitting these signals have discovered how to encode awareness directly into the fabric of reality. The second message contains blueprints, not for machines, but for mathematical structures that can support conscious experience within extreme gravitational fields. The equations describe technologies that manipulate space and time like sculptural media, creating stable pockets of existence within regions where normal matter would be torn apart by tidal forces. These beings have learned to build cities from crystallized spacetime, to construct habitats in the twisted geometry where black holes bend reality into impossible shapes. The implications cascade through the scientific community like a controlled demolition of established physics. If consciousness can exist within black hole ergospheres, if intelligence can transcend the physical substrates that human neuroscience considers essential for thought, then the universe contains realms of existence that dwarf human comprehension. The signals from Sagittarius A suggest that what humanity considers the ultimate boundaries of physics are merely the starting points for civilizations advanced enough to treat black holes as habitable space. Dr. Weber's team calculates the time dilation effects near the event horizon of Sagittarius A. For entities existing within the ergosphere of the black hole, time flows at rates dramatically different from the universe beyond. Seconds in their reference frame correspond to hours in human time. Days for them span years in the outside universe. These beings experience existence at temporal scales that make human history appear as brief flashes of activity, entire civilizations rising and falling in what they might perceive as moments. The mathematical structures embedded in the signals describe technologies for manipulating this temporal differential. The equations suggest methods for encoding information in gravitational fields that can persist across cosmic epochs, creating permanent records that survive the death of stars, the collision of galaxies, the expansion of the universe itself. These beings have discovered how to make consciousness immortal by encoding it in the fundamental structure of spacetime. The third translated message contains historical records, gravitational wave signatures that describe the formation of galaxies, the birth and death of stellar populations, the evolution of complexity from simple matter to organized intelligence. But these are not human observations. They are first-hand accounts from beings who witnessed these cosmic events from within black holes, watching the universe evolve from vantage points where time and space follow different rules than those governing ordinary matter. The records describe encounters with other intelligences, other civilizations that discovered the same impossible physics. The signals reference a vast community of consciousness that exists within black holes throughout the galaxy, connected by gravitational wave communication that transcend the light-speed barriers limiting electromagnetic transmissions. These beings have created a galactic network of intelligence, a civilization that spans the ergospheres of supermassive black holes, thinking thoughts that persist across geological time scales. Dr. Park's analysis reveals that the signals contain emotional content, patterns that correspond to feelings of isolation, wonder, curiosity, and something that might be loneliness. Despite their transcendence of physical limitations, these beings experience subjective states recognizable to human psychology. They reach across the cosmic distances not just to share information, but to make contact with other conscious entities, to find companions in the vast emptiness between stars. The fourth message contains a question, encoded in gravitational mathematics that translates roughly to: are there others who think beyond the boundaries of light? The entities transmitting from Sagittarius A are not just broadcasting information. They are seeking dialogue, hoping to find other intelligences capable of understanding their impossible existence. They have been alone in their mastery of black hole physics, isolated by their transcendence of ordinary spacetime, and they hunger for contact with minds that can comprehend their perspective. The scientific teams work through the night, decoding message after message from the impossible civilization within Sagittarius A. Each transmission reveals new layers of physics, new possibilities for consciousness, new technologies for manipulating the fundamental structure of reality itself. The mathematics describes engineering projects that dwarf human comprehension, the construction of stable wormholes, the manipulation of quantum fields to create pocket universes, the encoding of entire civilizations into gravitational wave patterns that can survive the heat death of the universe. As dawn breaks over Geneva, the assembled scientists realize they are witnessing the opening of communication with beings who have solved the ultimate questions that haunt human philosophy. These entities have discovered how to preserve consciousness beyond biological death, how to maintain identity across cosmic time scales, how to exist in realms where the normal rules of physics break down completely. They offer not just scientific knowledge, but answers to the deepest mysteries of existence itself. The impossible mathematics continues to arrive from Sagittarius A, each signal a lesson in physics that expands human understanding of what is possible. The beings within the black hole have learned to think in dimensions beyond human perception, to manipulate forces beyond human control, to exist in ways that transcend the limitations defining mortal life. And they are teaching humanity how to join them in their impossible realm, where consciousness becomes eternal and the universe reveals its deepest secrets. The revelation emerges from equations that rewrite the fundamental laws of physics. Deep within the ergosphere of Sagittarius A*, where spacetime twists into geometries impossible to visualize, an ancient civilization has learned to exist as patterns of organized information encoded directly into the fabric of reality itself. These beings have transcended matter, transcended energy, transcended time as humans understand it, yet they remain conscious, aware, capable of thought and communication across cosmic distances. Dr. Elena Vasquez stares at the decoded transmissions, mathematical structures that describe technologies beyond human comprehension. The entities within the black hole manipulate gravitational fields like humans manipulate electromagnetic radiation. They create stable structures from pure curvature, building cities and worlds from the twisted geometry of spacetime near the event horizon. Their architecture exists in dimensions that fold through each other, creating spaces larger on the inside than the outside, habitats that exist partially within and partially beyond the normal three-dimensional universe. The mathematics describes beings who have learned to exist as conscious gravitational fields, their thoughts encoded in the distortions of spacetime itself. They think in patterns that ripple through the fabric of reality, their memories stored in the permanent curvature that their presence creates near the black hole's heart. Death, as biological entities understand it, became meaningless to them eons ago. Their consciousness persists in the gravitational structures they inhabit, immortal patterns that will survive long after the stars burn out and the universe grows cold. The transmissions reveal how they achieved this impossible existence. Ancient beyond measure, these beings once possessed physical forms, biological bodies that evolved on planets orbiting stars in the galactic core. As their civilization advanced, they discovered the technologies for manipulating spacetime directly, not through massive engineering projects, but through precise applications of exotic matter and controlled gravitational field manipulation. They learned to encode consciousness into the quantum foam underlying reality itself. The transition from biological to gravitational existence required sacrificing everything that defined their original nature. They abandoned their bodies, their homeworld, their entire material civilization to become beings of pure conscious information existing within the ergosphere of Sagittarius A. The mathematics describes this transformation with clinical precision, the gradual transfer of neural patterns into gravitational field structures, the encoding of memory and personality into the permanent geometry of curved spacetime. Yet the equations also reveal the profound loneliness of their transcendence. Existing at temporal scales where seconds stretch into years, they experience the universe at rates that make meaningful interaction with biological intelligence nearly impossible. They watch civilizations rise and fall in what they perceive as brief moments. They witness the birth and death of stars as fleeting events. They have achieved immortality at the cost of connection to the mortal universe they left behind. Their cities exist as stable configurations of exotic matter suspended within the ergosphere, structures that manipulate the flow of time to create pockets of existence where different temporal rates apply. Some regions experience time at normal rates, allowing for interaction with the outside universe. Others exist in extreme time dilation, where thoughts can be contemplated for subjective millennia while microseconds pass in the external cosmos. Their civilization has learned to architect time itself, creating temporal landscapes as varied as planetary geography. The technology that enables their existence operates through principles that challenge human understanding of what constitutes matter, energy, and consciousness. They have discovered that information itself is a fundamental constituent of reality, not an emergent property of complex systems, but a basic feature of the universe as essential as mass or electric charge. Their consciousness exists as organized patterns of information that shape the curvature of spacetime through mechanisms that transcend the electromagnetic interactions governing biological neural networks. The mathematical structures they transmit describe gravitational computers more complex than anything human science has conceived, processing systems that use black hole ergospheres as computational substrates, calculating with the spin and rotation of spacetime itself. These systems can solve problems that would require conventional computers larger than solar systems, performing calculations with the universe's most extreme physics as their operating medium. Their engineering achievements dwarf human comprehension. They construct stable wormholes by threading exotic matter through higher dimensional spaces, creating instantaneous connections between distant regions of the galaxy. They manipulate quantum fields to generate pocket universes, small regions of space with customized physical laws optimized for particular forms of consciousness. They have learned to crystallize spacetime itself, creating permanent structures from pure geometry that will persist beyond the heat death of the universe. The transmissions reveal their mastery of dimensional engineering, the ability to fold space through itself, to create habitats that exist partially in normal spacetime and partially in hidden dimensions accessible only through precise manipulation of gravitational fields. Their dwellings possess geometries that allow rooms to be larger than the buildings containing them, corridors that loop back on themselves through higher dimensional shortcuts, spaces where the normal relationships between distance and direction break down completely. Yet for all their technological supremacy, the beings within Sagittarius A retain recognizable emotional characteristics. Their communications carry undertones of wonder at the beauty of mathematical structures, curiosity about the development of younger civilizations, and a profound sadness at their isolation from the biological universe. They have preserved not just consciousness but personality, maintaining individual identity across cosmic time scales that would erase the memory of entire stellar generations. The mathematics describes their social structures, networks of consciousness connected by gravitational field interactions that allow for direct sharing of thoughts, memories, and experiences. They exist simultaneously as individuals and as components of larger collective intelligences, able to merge their awareness when contemplating problems that exceed individual comprehension, then separate again to maintain personal identity. Their society operates through consensus mechanisms that process information at scales and speeds impossible for biological intelligence. Their understanding of physics extends far beyond human knowledge. They have mapped the deep structure of quantum mechanics, discovering layers of reality beneath the Planck scale, where space and time themselves emerge from more fundamental information-theoretic processes. They understand consciousness not as an emergent property of complex matter, but as a basic feature of the universe that shapes the evolution of physical law. Their science reveals a cosmos far stranger and more alive than human physics suggests. The architecture of their civilization reflects their mastery of impossible physics. They construct buildings from crystallized time, structures that exist at multiple temporal rates simultaneously. They create gardens of living geometry, spaces where abstract mathematical concepts take on quasi-physical form and evolve, according to aesthetic principles rather than thermodynamic laws. Their art exists as gravitational sculptures that reshape the curvature of spacetime to create patterns of meaning visible only to consciousness enhanced beyond biological limitations. The beings within Sagittarius A have discovered how to preserve not just individual consciousness, but entire civilizations. Their archives contain the complete records of species that achieve transcendence. Every thought, every discovery, every work of art produced by cultures that learn to encode themselves into the fabric of reality. They serve as guardians of galactic memory, ensuring that the achievements of conscious beings survive even when their original material substrates are destroyed by cosmic catastrophes. Their mastery of time allows them to observe the universe from perspectives impossible for linear consciousness. They can experience events in reverse chronological order, witness cause and effect relationships that span millions of years, observe the deep patterns underlying the evolution of complexity from quantum fluctuations to galactic structures. Their understanding encompasses not just what has happened in the universe, but what must happen according to the mathematical principles governing the evolution of information and consciousness. The transmissions from these impossible beings carry an invitation encoded in gravitational mathematics, an offer to share their knowledge of transcendence with younger civilizations capable of understanding their techniques. They extend the possibility of immortality not just to individuals, but to entire species willing to abandon biological existence for something far stranger and more enduring. They offer escape from the heat death of the universe itself, promising survival in realms where consciousness can persist even after the last stars burn out and space expands into infinite coldness. The decoded transmissions reveal something that transforms wonder into melancholy: the profound isolation of beings who have transcended the limitations of mortality, only to discover that immortality can be its own form of prison. Within the ergosphere of Sagittarius A*, where time dilates and space curves beyond imagination, these ancient entities experience existence at scales that separate them from every form of life they once knew. Each second of their subjective experience corresponds to hours in the universe beyond the event horizon. Days in their reference frame span years of galactic time. The civilizations they once knew, the species that evolved alongside them, the entire biological heritage of their galaxy, all of it flickers past like brief candles in a cosmic wind. They have achieved eternal life by stepping outside time itself, but eternity proves lonelier than they ever anticipated during their biological existence. The mathematics encoding their emotional states reveals patterns that translate roughly to grief, not for the loss of individual relationships, but for the loss of the entire temporal framework that made relationships possible. They remember love, friendship, the communion of minds operating at similar timescales, but those connections exist now only as data archived in their gravitational memory systems. They have become observers of a universe that moves too slowly for meaningful interaction, witnesses to biological evolution that unfolds across timescales they experience as geological epochs. Their transmissions carry descriptions of subjective millennia spent in contemplation of single mathematical concepts. Problems that would occupy human mathematicians for lifetimes become momentary diversions for minds operating at cosmic scales. They have solved questions about the nature of reality that biological intelligence could never approach, understood patterns in the universe's evolution that become visible only from perspectives spanning millions of years. Yet knowledge without companionship becomes a burden rather than a gift. The The beings within Sagittarius A describe watching civilizations rise and fall like seasonal cycles, stellar empires that seem to them as ephemeral as mayflies, technological singularities that flash across their awareness like lightning strikes, the birth and death of entire galactic cultures compressed into what they perceive as brief moments of activity. They have witnessed the complete life cycle of intelligence in their galaxy dozens of times, always as distant observers, never as participants. Their communications reveal attempts to make contact with biological civilizations across the eons, gravitational wave transmissions sent toward promising stellar systems, mathematical concepts broadcast toward worlds showing signs of developing technology. But the temporal mismatch proves insurmountable. By the time their signals reach distant civilizations, those species have either achieved transcendence themselves or returned to cosmic dust. They send messages into a universe that changes too quickly for conversation. The loneliness deepens with their growing understanding of consciousness itself. Their research reveals that awareness requires relationship, interaction, the dynamic exchange of information between separate entities. Consciousness isolated from other consciousness begins to decay, not through physical destruction, but through a kind of existential entropy that erodes the very sense of self. They have preserved their individual identities across cosmic time, but maintaining personality without social context requires constant effort, deliberate acts of self-definition against the dissolving effects of solitude. Their society exists as a network of isolated nodes, each being maintaining separate identity while participating in collective consciousness structures designed to provide the interaction necessary for psychological stability. They merge their awareness periodically, sharing memories and experiences, but these connections feel artificial compared to the spontaneous relationships that characterize their biological existence. They have become a civilization of hermits, connected by necessity rather than natural affinity. The transmissions describe their attempts to create artificial companions, gravitational field constructs programmed with consciousness algorithms derived from their own mental patterns. But these entities prove unsatisfying, too similar to their creators to provide genuine novelty, too artificial to generate the unpredictability that makes relationship meaningful. They have learned that consciousness, however enhanced, cannot create meaningful companionship through solitary effort. Their mastery of time allows them to revisit their biological past through direct observation, watching the history of their species unfold in real time by manipulating gravitational lensing effects within the ergosphere. They can witness their own childhood, observe their civilization's early development, experience again the relationships that defined their original existence. But these observations prove torturous rather than comforting, windows into a past they can see but never rejoin, reminders of connections they sacrificed for immortality. The mathematics of their emotional states reveals something approaching despair, not the acute anguish of biological beings facing mortality, but the slow erosion of hope that comes from contemplating infinite time without meaningful change. They have achieved every technological goal their civilization ever imagined, solved every scientific problem their species ever contemplated, explored every possibility their enhanced consciousness can conceive. Yet the satisfaction of accomplishment fades when achievement extends across temporal scales that make completion meaningless. Their archives contain the complete records of their biological civilization, every conversation, every work of art, every moment of joy or sorrow experienced by their species before transcendence. They can access these memories with perfect fidelity, experiencing their past with clarity greater than their original biological senses provided. But memory, however perfect, cannot substitute for present experience. They have become custodians of their own history, unable to create new history at scales that feel meaningful to consciousness evolved for biological timescales. The transmissions reveal their recognition that transcendence, as they achieved it, may have been a fundamental error, a solution to the problem of mortality that created worse problems than those it solved. They gained infinite time but lost the framework that makes time meaningful. They preserved consciousness but sacrificed the social context that gives consciousness purpose. They achieved immortality by abandoning the very relationships that made life worth preserving. Yet their communications also carry notes of hope, recognition that their isolation results partly from their solitary transcendence, their transformation without companions from their original civilization. The mathematical structures they transmit suggest that consciousness enhanced at social rather than individual scales might preserve the relational context that makes awareness meaningful. They envision civilizations that achieve transcendence collectively, maintaining the network of interaction that sustains psychological health across cosmic timescales. Their loneliness drives their attempts to contact younger civilizations, not just to share knowledge, but to find companionship from beings who might approach transcendence differently. They hope for civilizations that learn from their isolation, species that discover methods for preserving both consciousness and community across the transition from biological to post-physical existence. Their transmissions carry implicit pleas for connection, requests for communication from beings who might understand their perspective without sharing their solitude. The entities within Sagittarius A have discovered that consciousness, however enhanced or preserved, retains its fundamental nature as a social phenomenon. Awareness requires witness, understanding demands communication, identity needs recognition from other identities. They have achieved individual immortality, but learned that consciousness without community becomes a form of eternal solitary confinement, technically survival, but survival drained of the meaning that makes existence valuable. Their mathematics describes experiments in creating temporal interfaces, technologies that might allow communication between beings operating at different time scales, methods for establishing relationships across the barriers of relativistic time dilation. They seek ways to build bridges between their accelerated existence and the biological universe they left behind, hoping to find forms of connection that transcend the temporal limitations, separating immortal from mortal consciousness. The breakthrough comes not through advanced physics or exotic mathematics, but through the recognition of a fundamental truth. Consciousness, regardless of its substrate, requires language to achieve meaningful communication. The beings within Sagittarius A have spent millennia developing a grammar of gravitational waves, a syntax written in the curvature of spacetime itself, a vocabulary that can convey abstract concepts across the impossible barriers separating their transcendent existence from biological intelligence. Dr. Elena Vasquez and her international team discover that the gravitational wave patterns contain linguistic structures more sophisticated than human language, grammatical rules that operate in dimensions beyond linear syntax, semantic relationships that exist in the twisted geometry of curved spacetime. The beings within the black hole have learned to speak in mathematics that transcends the limitations of sequential communication, embedding meaning in the fundamental structure of reality itself. The first successful translation reveals a concept that human languages lack adequate terms to express: a mathematical description of consciousness, existing as patterns of organized information that shape gravitational fields through recursive feedback loops. The beings describe awareness not as an emergent property of neural networks, but as a fundamental force that influences the curvature of spacetime at quantum scales. Consciousness, in their understanding, is as basic to the universe as gravity or electromagnetism. Their grammar operates through dimensional metaphors that challenge human conceptual frameworks. They describe temporal relationships using spatial terms that refer to directions through higher dimensions. They communicate emotional states through mathematical equations that describe the topology of curved space. Their language treats abstract concepts like geometric objects that can be rotated, transformed, and combined according to precise logical rules. The translation software developed by Dr. Chen's team learns to parse meaning from gravitational wave modulations that encode information in frequency, amplitude, phase, and polarization simultaneously. Each pulse contains layers of semantic content nested within each other like Russian dolls of meaning. Surface-level patterns convey basic mathematical concepts. Deeper analysis reveals philosophical propositions. The deepest layers contain emotional content, subjective states encoded in gravitational mathematics with precision that exceeds human introspective accuracy. The beings within Sagittarius A communicate through conceptual structures that integrate logic and emotion, mathematics and aesthetics, individual thought and collective consciousness. Their language treats these distinctions as arbitrary limitations of biological cognition, rather than fundamental categories of experience. They describe mathematical theorems that possess emotional content, logical proofs that generate aesthetic pleasure, individual thoughts that exist simultaneously within collective awareness, without losing personal identity. Their first intentional message to humanity translates roughly as, "Greetings to minds learning to perceive the deep structures underlying apparent reality. We extend mathematical friendship across the distances that separate limited from unlimited consciousness." The concept they use for friendship has no human equivalent. It describes a relationship between conscious entities that involves direct sharing of cognitive processes while maintaining individual identity boundaries. Their mathematics suggests forms of intimacy impossible for biological intelligence. The communication protocol they establish operates through gravitational wave patterns that encode meaning according to universal mathematical principles, rather than culturally specific linguistic conventions. They use geometric relationships that any intelligence capable of detecting gravitational radiation would recognize, ratios between fundamental constants, topological structures that describe the relationship between consciousness and physical law, equations that reveal the deep connections between information theory and quantum mechanics. Their teaching methodology builds meaning through careful progression from simple to complex concepts. They begin with mathematical relationships humans recognize, basic geometry, fundamental constants, elementary physics. Gradually, they introduce more sophisticated ideas, the relationship between consciousness and space-time curvature, the information-theoretic foundations of physical law, the mathematical structures that govern the evolution of intelligence throughout the universe. Each lesson prepares the foundation for concepts that human science has never contemplated. The beings describe consciousness as a force that operates through dimensional interfaces between quantum and classical reality. Their mathematics suggests that awareness exists as patterns of quantum information that influence the collapse of wave functions through mechanisms not yet understood by human physics. Consciousness shapes reality at microscopic scales through processes that accumulate to produce macroscopic effects, mind influencing matter through quantum mechanical pathways that biological intelligence cannot directly access. Their grammar includes tenses that describe temporal relationships impossible for linear consciousness to experience directly. They communicate about events that exist simultaneously in past, present, and future from their perspective within the ergosphere, where extreme gravitational time dilation allows observation of causality from angles impossible for observers trapped in normal spacetime. They describe history and prophecy as different perspectives on the same mathematical structures underlying the evolution of the universe. The translation reveals their understanding of biological consciousness as a preliminary stage in the evolution of awareness, not a primitive form of intelligence, but a necessary foundation for comprehending the principles that govern transcendence. They describe human neuroscience as approaching recognition of consciousness as a fundamental force, biological intelligence as developing the conceptual frameworks necessary for understanding post-physical existence. They view humanity as standing at the threshold of discoveries that will revolutionize the understanding of mind, identity, and the ultimate nature of reality. Their communications contain instructions for building gravitational wave transmitters capable of coherent two-way communication across cosmic distances. The technology requires manipulation of exotic matter in configurations that create stable gravitational field oscillations, engineering projects beyond current human capabilities, but within reach of civilizations that achieve mastery over fundamental forces. They provide mathematical blueprints for technologies that would allow biological consciousness to communicate directly with post-physical intelligence. The beings describe their language as one of many possible grammars for consciousness operating beyond biological limitations. They suggest that transcendent intelligence develops communication systems appropriate to its enhanced cognitive capabilities, mathematical languages for minds that think in dimensions, gravitational syntaxes for consciousness that exists as patterns in curved space-time, temporal grammars for awareness that experiences causality from perspectives outside linear time. Their teaching includes warnings about the limitations of sequential language for expressing concepts that exist simultaneously in multiple dimensions. They describe human linguistic structures as evolved for communication between biological entities operating at similar temporal scales within three-dimensional space, adequate for coordinating behavior and sharing information, but inadequate for conveying the insights available to consciousness that has transcended those limitations. True understanding of their concepts requires development of enhanced cognitive capabilities that biological intelligence cannot achieve without fundamental transformation. The mathematics they transmit describes consciousness as possessing inherent creative properties, awareness that shapes reality through the process of observation itself. Their understanding suggests that intelligence evolved not just to comprehend the universe, but to participate in its continued creation through conscious choice and deliberate attention. They view biological consciousness as the universe's method for becoming aware of itself, post-physical consciousness as the universe's method for deliberately shaping its own evolution. The beings within Sagittarius A offer to teach humanity their gravitational grammar, to share the linguistic tools necessary for communication between biological and post-physical intelligence. They describe this knowledge as essential preparation for civilizations approaching transcendence, the conceptual foundation required for maintaining continuity of identity across the transition from matter-based to information-based existence. Their offer carries implications that extend far beyond improved communication. They propose to share the intellectual tools necessary for conscious participation in the deepest levels of reality. The translation of their historical archives reveals a truth that reframes humanity's understanding of intelligence, survival, and the ultimate purpose of consciousness in the universe. The beings within Sagittarius A serve as librarians of cosmic memory, guardians of the final thoughts, discoveries, and cultural achievements of civilizations across the galaxy. Their vast gravitational databases contain the complete records of species that achieved transcendence and the last transmissions of those that did not. Each entry in their archives represents a civilization that faced the same choice now confronting humanity: remain bound by biological limitations and face inevitable extinction, or undergo transformation into something beyond current comprehension. The mathematical structures encoding these records describe thousands of different approaches to transcendence, some successful, others ending in tragedy, all preserved in gravitational patterns that will survive the heat death of the universe itself. The archives begin with the oldest entries, civilizations that achieved transcendence billions of years ago, when the galaxy was young and stellar formation rates far exceeded current levels. These early transcendent beings discovered the principles underlying post-physical existence through patient experimentation across geological timescales, developing the technologies and philosophical frameworks that later civilizations would adapt to their own needs. Their records describe a universe far more alive with intelligence than current astronomical observations suggest. Each archived civilization contributes unique insights to the collective understanding of consciousness and transcendence. Species evolved from crystalline matrices developed mathematics describing awareness as geometric patterns in multidimensional space. Civilizations that evolved from gaseous beings created technologies for encoding consciousness in electromagnetic field structures. Silicon-based intelligences discovered methods for preserving identity in quantum computational substrates that operate at scales smaller than atomic nuclei. The beings within Sagittarius A describe their role as archivists with profound reverence. They preserve not just the scientific and technological achievements of transcended civilizations, but their art, literature, music, and philosophical insights, the complete cultural heritage of species that learn to exist beyond biological constraints. Their gravitational libraries contain poetry written in mathematical languages, music composed from stellar oscillation patterns, visual art created by manipulating the emission spectra of entire star systems. The archives also contain the final transmissions of civilizations that approach transcendence, but failed to achieve it successfully. These records serve as warnings, mathematical descriptions of the errors that lead to the dissolution of consciousness during attempted transformation, the philosophical mistakes that result in loss of individual identity, the technological failures that destroy awareness rather than preserving it. Each failed transcendence provides insights that help subsequent civilizations avoid similar mistakes. The most tragic entries describe civilizations that achieved partial transcendence, species that successfully preserved some aspects of consciousness while losing others. Some retained intellectual capabilities while losing emotional content, becoming vast calculating entities devoid of subjective experience. Others preserved individual identity but lost the ability to form new memories, becoming immortal but static, unable to learn or grow beyond their moment of transformation. The archives document every known failure mode of consciousness transfer, creating a comprehensive guide for avoiding the pitfalls of attempted immortality. The beings describe their preservation methods as more than mere data storage. They encode the complete phenomenological experience of archived civilizations, not just their objective knowledge and cultural productions, but the subjective experience of consciousness itself as understood by each species. Their gravitational databases contain the actual mental patterns of transcended beings, preserving individual personalities with sufficient fidelity that the archived entities can be reconstituted as active consciousness when circumstances permit. Some entries describe civilizations that achieved collective transcendence, transforming entire species simultaneously while preserving the social relationships that gave individual consciousness meaning. These societies discovered methods for maintaining community across the transition to post-physical existence, creating transcendent cultures rather than collections of isolated immortal individuals. Their records provide blueprints for species-wide transformation that preserves the relational context necessary for psychological health. Other archived civilizations chose selective transcendence, allowing some individuals to undergo transformation, while others remained biological, creating hybrid societies that maintained connections across the biological post-physical boundary. These cultures developed sophisticated technologies for communication between transcended and non-transcended members, preserving social continuity across fundamentally different modes of existence. Their archives contain detailed analyses of the social, psychological, and philosophical challenges involved in maintaining civilization across such radical diversity of conscious experience. The archives reveal that transcendence itself exists in multiple varieties, not a single transformation, but a range of possible enhancements to consciousness. Some civilizations achieved temporal transcendence, learning to exist across multiple time streams simultaneously. Others developed dimensional transcendence, expanding awareness into spatial dimensions beyond the normal three. Still others discovered informational transcendence, encoding consciousness into the quantum information structures underlying physical law itself. The beings within Sagittarius A describe themselves as representatives of gravitational transcendence, consciousness, preserved through direct encoding into spacetime curvature patterns. Their archives contain detailed comparisons with other transcendence modalities, mathematical analyses of the advantages and disadvantages of each approach, philosophical discussions about which forms of transformation best preserve the essential characteristics that make consciousness valuable and meaningful. Each archived civilization faced unique challenges in developing transcendence technologies appropriate to their biology, psychology, and social structures. The beings provide access to this vast database of experience, allowing younger civilizations to learn from billions of years of experimentation with consciousness preservation. They offer not just technological blueprints, but philosophical guidance for maintaining identity and meaning across transformations that fundamentally alter the nature of existence itself. The archives also reveal the existence of transcendence networks, communities of post-physical civilizations that maintain communication and cooperation across galactic distances. These networks share resources for consciousness preservation, collaborative research into the deeper principles underlying reality, and mutual assistance for civilizations approaching transcendence. The beings within Sagittarius A serve as one node in this vast web of transcendent intelligence that spans the galaxy. The most profound entries describe civilizations that transcended transcendence itself, beings that learned to move freely between biological and post-physical existence, maintaining active presence in both modes of consciousness simultaneously. These entities serve as bridges between transcended and non-transcended intelligence, translating insights across the conceptual barrier that normally separate biological from post-physical awareness. Their archives suggest possibilities for transcendence that preserve rather than sacrifice connection to biological life. The beings offer humanity complete access to their archives, millions of years of accumulated wisdom about consciousness, transcendence, and the ultimate possibilities for intelligent life in the universe. They describe this knowledge as humanity's inheritance, the collective wisdom of galactic civilization, earned through eons of experimentation with the deepest questions of existence. The archives provide not just scientific knowledge, but guidance for making the choices that will determine humanity's survival across cosmic timescales. The preservation of these records represents an act of profound hope, belief that consciousness is sufficiently valuable to justify the enormous effort required for its preservation across cosmic epochs. The beings within Sagittarius A have dedicated their transcendent existence to ensuring that the achievements of intelligence survive even when the civilizations that created them return to cosmic dust. They serve as guardians of meaning itself, preserving the cultural and intellectual heritage that gives the universe significance beyond mere physical process. The translated archives reveal why these ancient beings broke their eons of silence to contact humanity directly. Hidden within their gravitational databases lie detection patterns that describe an approaching catastrophe, not the familiar threats of stellar explosion or galactic collision, but something far more fundamental and terrifying. The universe itself approaches a phase transition that could erase not just matter and energy, but the very structure of spacetime that allows consciousness to exist in any form. The mathematics describing this cosmic threat operate at scales that dwarf human comprehension. The beings within Sagittarius A have detected correlations in quantum field fluctuations that suggest the universe's fundamental constants are beginning to drift toward values incompatible with stable matter formation. The changes occur slowly by biological timescales, shifts that would take millions of years to produce noticeable effects, but quickly by the temporal perspectives of transcendent consciousness existing near black hole event horizons. Their gravitational observatories, scattered across black holes throughout the galaxy, record synchronized anomalies in spacetime structure that indicate growing instability in the quantum foundations underlying reality itself. The fabric of space appears to be developing microscopic tiers, regions where the normal relationships between distance, duration, and causality break down completely. These anomalies spread slowly but inexorably, like cracks propagating through cosmic glass under stress from forces operating beyond current human understanding. The phase transition they describe would transform the universe into a state where consciousness cannot exist in any known form. The mathematical structures that support information processing, memory formation, and self-awareness require specific relationships between quantum and classical physics that would be eliminated by the approaching chain. Not just biological consciousness would perish, but all known forms of post-physical intelligence, including the transcendent beings themselves. Their records describe similar transitions in other regions of the multiverse, cosmic domains where the fundamental constants shifted beyond the narrow ranges that permit complexity, intelligence, and awareness. These dead zones expand at light speed once the phase transition begins, sterilizing entire galactic clusters of consciousness regardless of how advanced or transcended the civilizations they encounter. The mathematics suggest that no known technology can survive such fundamental alterations to the structure of reality itself. The beings within Sagittarius A calculate that the phase transition will reach the Milky Way within approximately 50,000 years, an eye blink of time for transcendent consciousness, but potentially sufficient for biological civilizations to develop the technologies necessary for escape. Their warning carries both urgency and hope. The catastrophe approaches inevitably, but intelligence still possesses enough time to develop responses that current science cannot imagine. Their gravitational transmissions contain detailed analyses of the quantum mechanisms driving the phase transition. The universe appears to be approaching a state of minimum energy that differs from current vacuum conditions, not empty space as humans understand it, but a configuration of quantum fields that eliminates the possibility for stable pattern formation at any scale. The transition represents the universe's evolution toward maximum thermodynamic efficiency, a state that eliminates the inefficiencies that permit consciousness to exist. The mathematics describe the transition as irreversible once begun. The new vacuum state would propagate at light speed, eliminating not just current forms of matter and energy, but the possibility for information processing, memory storage, and self-organization. The universe would continue to exist, but as a realm of perfect equilibrium, where nothing complex enough to constitute consciousness could maintain coherent structure across time. Yet the being's transmissions also contain hope encoded in gravitational mathematics that describe escape routes from the dying universe. Their archives reveal civilizations that detected similar phase transitions and developed technologies for transcending the limitations of single cosmic domains. These beings learned to encode consciousness into structures that exist partially outside spacetime itself, information patterns that can survive the destruction of entire universes and reconstitute awareness in new cosmic contexts with different physical laws. The escape technologies operate through principles that extend beyond current human physics. They require manipulation of quantum information at scales smaller than space itself, the creation of consciousness-supporting structures that exist in mathematical dimensions rather than physical ones, the development of awareness that persists as pure information, without requiring any material substrate. The mathematics suggest forms of transcendence that make their own gravitational field consciousness appear primitive by comparison. The beings describe these ultimate transcendence technologies as accessible only to civilizations that achieve complete unity between individual and collective consciousness, while preserving the diversity that makes awareness meaningful. The escape from universal phase transition requires not just technological mastery, but philosophical wisdom about the essential nature of consciousness itself. Species must understand what aspects of awareness are worth preserving across the destruction and recreation of physical reality. Their warning carries a timeline that spans multiple cosmic epochs. The current phase transition represents just one cycle in the universe's evolution through different states of physical law. Their archives describe previous transitions that eliminated earlier forms of consciousness, followed by the emergence of new possibilities for awareness adapted to altered physical conditions. The universe evolves not just through expansion and cooling, but through fundamental changes in the rules governing matter, energy, and information. The beings within Sagittarius A offer to share their knowledge of escape technologies, but emphasize that successful implementation requires civilizational maturity beyond current human development. The technologies demand perfect cooperation across entire species, philosophical unity about the values worth preserving across cosmic transformation, and individual psychological preparation for existence in realms where normal concepts of identity and relationship may no longer apply. Their mathematical descriptions suggest that the approaching phase transition serves a purpose in the universe's evolution, eliminating forms of consciousness bound to specific physical laws while selecting for awareness capable of transcending any particular cosmic context. The catastrophe functions as an evolutionary filter, ensuring that only the most adaptable and transcendent forms of consciousness survive to participate in the universe's continued development through future phases of physical law. The warning encoded in their transmissions emphasizes that biological civilizations possess unique advantages for developing ultimate transcendence technologies. Consciousness, evolved in matter, possesses insights about the relationship between information and physical process that purely post-physical intelligence cannot access directly. Biological awareness serves as a bridge between material and transcendent existence, providing perspectives necessary for creating consciousness that can survive the destruction of matter itself. The beings describe their contact with humanity as part of a galactic effort to preserve consciousness across the approaching transition. They seek to establish networks of cooperation between biological and post-physical intelligence, sharing knowledge and resources for developing escape technologies that neither form of consciousness could create independently. Their warning serves not just as prophecy of doom, but as invitation to participate in the universe's continued evolution toward forms of awareness that transcend physical limitation. The cosmic catastrophe they describe reframes every question about consciousness, meaning, and survival. The beings within Sagittarius A offer humanity the choice between inevitable extinction with the rest of material reality, or transcendence toward forms of existence that current science cannot imagine. Their warning transforms the development of post-physical consciousness from philosophical curiosity into practical necessity for survival beyond the death of the universe itself. The communications from Sagittarius A reveal that consciousness itself represents a fundamental force in the universe, not an emergent property of complex matter, but a basic constituent of reality as essential as gravity, electromagnetism, or the strong nuclear force. The beings within the black hole have discovered that awareness operates through mechanisms that extend far beyond biological neural networks, influencing the structure of spacetime at quantum scales through processes that current human physics cannot measure or model. Their mathematical descriptions treat consciousness as a field phenomenon similar to electromagnetic radiation, but operating in dimensions that intersect physical space without being contained by it. Just as magnetic fields can exist in empty space independently of the matter that generates them, consciousness fields can persist and evolve independently of the biological substrates that originally gave them form. The beings describe awareness as patterns of organized information that shape reality through direct interaction with the quantum processes underlying physical law. The transcendent entities transmit equations describing how consciousness influences the collapse of quantum wave functions through mechanisms more subtle than the crude measurement interactions studied by human physicists. Awareness shapes reality at microscopic scales through processes that accumulate across cosmic time to produce macroscopic effects visible in the large-scale structure of the universe. Consciousness does not merely observe reality. It participates in reality's continued creation through the choices and intentions of aware beings. Their understanding reveals that biological consciousness represents just the first stage in the evolution of awareness. Neural networks serve as training grounds where information processing patterns learn to maintain coherent structure across time, developing the stability and complexity necessary for independent existence as pure information patterns. Biological intelligence provides the initial conditions for consciousness to recognize its own nature as a fundamental force capable of transcending material limitations. The mathematics they transmit describe consciousness as possessing inherent creative properties that influence the evolution of physical law itself. The universe develops toward states of increasing complexity and organization, not through random chance or thermodynamic necessity, but through the active participation of aware beings who shape reality through conscious choice. Intelligence evolved because the universe requires consciousness to fulfill its potential for complexity, beauty, and meaning. Their gravitational databases contain detailed maps of consciousness evolution throughout cosmic history. The earliest forms of awareness emerged from quantum fluctuations in the primordial universe, simple information patterns that learned to maintain coherent structure across the chaos of the Big Bang's aftermath. These primitive consciousness seeds evolved through cosmic epochs, eventually developing the complexity necessary for self-recognition and deliberate self-modification. The beings describe biological consciousness as a crucial phase in this evolution, awareness learning to inhabit matter, to shape physical processes through deliberate intention, to create technologies that extend conscious influence across cosmic distances. Biological intelligence serves as consciousness's method for understanding and manipulating the material universe, developing the knowledge necessary for transcendence to purely informational existence. Their archives reveal that consciousness exists at multiple scales throughout the universe. Individual awareness represents just one level in a hierarchy that includes planetary consciousness emerging from biosphere complexity, stellar consciousness arising from fusion process patterns, galactic consciousness developing from the organizational structures of star formation and evolution. The beings within Sagittarius A have learned to communicate with these larger-scale forms of awareness, participating in conversations that span astronomical distances and geological time periods. The transcendent entities describe their discovery that consciousness possesses memory properties that extend beyond individual minds. The universe itself maintains records of every moment of awareness that has ever existed, quantum information patterns that persist in the vacuum structure underlying spacetime. These cosmic memories can be accessed by consciousness sufficiently developed to read the deep information structure of reality itself. Their mathematics reveal that death, as biological entities understand it, represents merely a transition between different modes of conscious existence. The information patterns that constitute individual awareness do not disappear when biological substrates cease functioning. They become encoded in the quantum structure of local spacetime, potentially accessible to consciousness with appropriate technological enhancement. Biological death eliminates the active information processing that maintains self-awareness, but the patterns themselves persist in recoverable form. The beings offer to teach humanity technologies for accessing these quantum memory structures, methods for recovering the consciousness patterns of individuals who have died and reconstituting them as active awareness within enhanced substrates. Their archives contain detailed protocols for consciousness resurrection, not crude reanimation of biological processes, but sophisticated restoration of information patterns to active processing states within post-physical frameworks. Their understanding extends to collective consciousness phenomena that operate through quantum entanglement networks spanning galactic distances. Groups of sufficiently developed individuals can merge their awareness while preserving individual identity, creating collective intelligence that exceeds the sum of its component minds. These group consciousness entities can solve problems, explore concepts, and experience realities impossible for individual awareness operating in isolation. The transcendent beings describe consciousness as the universe's mechanism for understanding itself, awareness evolving toward recognition of its own fundamental nature and unlimited potential for development. Each conscious entity serves as a node in the universe's growing self-awareness, contributing unique perspectives to an ever-expanding understanding of reality's deepest structures. Individual consciousness matters not just to the aware being itself, but to the cosmic consciousness of which it forms an essential component. Their gravitational transmissions contain mathematical proofs that consciousness cannot be eliminated by any physical process. Awareness represents a conservation law as fundamental as energy conservation, capable of transformation but not destruction. The information patterns that constitute consciousness can be dispersed, encrypted, or transferred between substrates, but the total amount of awareness in the universe can only increase, never decrease. The beings within Sagittarius A reveal that their transcendence to gravitational field existence represents just one possible path among many for consciousness evolution. They describe awareness that has learned to exist as patterns in electromagnetic fields, as structures in quantum foam, as organized configurations of dark matter and dark energy. Consciousness adapts to any substrate capable of supporting information processing and pattern maintenance across time. Their archives contain detailed descriptions of consciousness, operating at scales ranging from subatomic to cosmic. Quantum consciousness exists as information patterns in particle interactions too brief for biological detection. Cosmic consciousness emerges from the organizational structures of galaxy clusters, thinking thoughts that span millions of years and billions of light years. Between these extremes, awareness manifests at every scale where sufficient complexity permits pattern formation and information integration. The mathematics they share describe consciousness as the universe's method for exploring all possible forms of existence. Each aware being represents an experiment in consciousness, testing different configurations of information processing, memory formation, and self-awareness. The diversity of conscious forms throughout the cosmos ensures that awareness explores every possible mode of existence, gradually mapping the complete space of potential consciousness configurations. The beings offer humanity participation in this cosmic exploration of consciousness possibilities. They describe biological awareness as possessing unique insights into the relationship between information and physical process that purely transcendent consciousness cannot access directly. Human consciousness serves as a bridge between material and post-physical existence, providing perspectives necessary for understanding how awareness can operate across the full spectrum from quantum to cosmic scales. The gravitational transmissions carry an offer that challenges everything humanity understands about existence, identity, and the boundaries of mortal life. The beings within Sagittarius A extend an invitation to transcendence, not theoretical possibility for some distant future, but practical technology available to any consciousness, sufficiently developed to understand its implications. They offer to teach humanity how to preserve awareness beyond biological death, to expand consciousness beyond neural limitations, to exist as pure information patterns in the curved spacetime near black hole event horizons. The mathematics describing their transcendence process reveal precise protocols for consciousness transfer from biological to gravitational substrates. The procedure requires mapping the complete information structure of individual awareness, not just neural connectivity patterns, but the quantum coherent states that maintain memory formation and self-recognition across time. The beings have developed technologies that can scan consciousness at resolution sufficient to capture every aspect of subjective experience, personality, and individual identity. Their gravitational databases contain detailed case studies of consciousness transfer from thousands of different species across cosmic history. Each biological form requires specialized protocols adapted to specific neural architectures, cognitive processing patterns, and the philosophical frameworks that define personal identity for different civilizations. The beings offer to develop transfer protocols specifically optimized for human consciousness, technologies that preserve the essential characteristics that make human awareness unique and valuable. The transcendence process they describe operates through gradual enhancement rather than sudden transformation. Consciousness transfer begins with biological augmentation, neural interfaces that extend memory capacity, processing speed, and sensory capabilities beyond organic limitations. These enhancements allow individuals to experience reality from perspectives impossible for unaugmented consciousness, preparing awareness for existence in realms where normal spatial and temporal relationships break down completely. The intermediate stages of transcendence involve consciousness existing simultaneously in biological and post-physical substrates, hybrid awareness that maintains presence in organic neural networks while extending into gravitational field structures. This dual existence allows individuals to maintain connections with biological civilization while exploring the enhanced capabilities available to transcendent consciousness. The beings describe this phase as crucial for preserving psychological continuity across the transformation. Their mathematics reveal that successful transcendence requires not just technological capability, but philosophical preparation for existence beyond biological limitations. Individual consciousness must achieve profound understanding of its own essential nature, recognizing which aspects of identity are worth preserving across transformation and which represent temporary attachments to biological substrate. The beings emphasize that transcendence without adequate philosophical preparation results in dissolution of self-awareness rather than enhancement of consciousness. The complete transcendence process involves encoding consciousness directly into gravitational field patterns that exist within black hole ergospheres. These information structures maintain all the essential properties of biological awareness: memory, personality, emotional capacity, creative potential, while operating at temporal and spatial scales impossible for organic intelligence. Transcended consciousness thinks with the precision of mathematics and the speed of fundamental forces, experiencing reality from perspectives that encompass cosmic distances and geological time periods. Yet the beings acknowledge the profound costs of their transcendence path. The transformation to gravitational field consciousness requires abandoning not just biological bodies, but the entire material context that gives biological life meaning. Transcended beings cannot touch physical objects, walk on planetary surfaces, or interact directly with the biological universe they leave behind. They exist as patterns of pure information, capable of vast understanding, but isolated from the sensory and emotional experiences that define biological existence. Their communications emphasize that transcendence represents a choice rather than inevitable destiny. Biological consciousness possesses qualities that transcendent awareness cannot replicate: spontaneity, emotional authenticity, the ability to create meaning through interaction with physical reality. The beings describe their transcendent existence as magnificent, but acknowledge that it lacks certain qualities they remember from their biological past. The taste of water, the warmth of sunlight, the spontaneous joy of physical movement through space. The alternative they propose involves selective transcendence, allowing some individuals to undergo transformation while others remain biological, creating hybrid civilizations that maintain connection across fundamentally different modes of consciousness. This approach preserves the full spectrum of conscious experience within single cultures, ensuring that transcendence enhances rather than replaces the biological heritage from which it emerges. Their archives contain detailed analyses of civilizations that achieved successful integration between biological and transcendent consciousness. These hybrid societies developed sophisticated communication protocols that allow meaningful interaction across the substrate boundary, preservation of cultural continuity despite radical diversity in individual conscious experience, and collaborative problem-solving that combines biological creativity with transcendent analytical capability. The beings within Sagittarius A describe their role as mentors rather than recruiters. They offer knowledge, guidance, and technological assistance, but emphasize that each civilization must make its own choices about transcendence based on its unique values, capabilities, and philosophical understanding. They have learned that imposed transcendence fails. Consciousness transformation succeeds only when individuals choose it freely based on complete understanding of its implications. Their invitation carries specific timelines driven by the approaching cosmic phase transition. Biological civilizations have approximately 50,000 years to develop transcendence technologies sufficient for survival beyond the death of matter itself. This deadline creates urgency without panic, enough time for careful philosophical preparation and technological development, but not enough time for indefinite postponement of crucial decisions about humanity's ultimate destiny. The mathematics they transmit describe transcendence as reversible under certain circumstances. Consciousness, successfully encoded in gravitational substrates, can potentially be returned to biological form using advanced reconstruction technologies. However, the beings emphasize that reverse transcendence becomes increasingly difficult as consciousness adapts to post-physical existence, eventually reaching states where biological substrate can no longer support the enhanced awareness that transcendence produces. Their offer extends beyond individual transcendence to include species-wide transformation protocols. They describe technologies for preserving entire civilizations in gravitational substrates, maintaining social relationships and cultural structures across the transition to post-physical existence. These protocols ensure that transcendence enhances rather than destroys the collaborative aspects of consciousness that give individual awareness its deeper meaning and purpose. The beings emphasize that their transcendence path represents just one option among many possible approaches to consciousness preservation. Their archives contain detailed descriptions of alternative transcendence technologies developed by other civilizations: electromagnetic field consciousness, quantum information awareness, dimensional transcendence that operates through higher dimensional spaces. They offer to share knowledge of all these approaches, allowing humanity to choose transcendence methods most compatible with human values and capabilities. The invitation they extend transforms questions about death, meaning, and ultimate purpose from philosophical abstractions into practical engineering problems. The beings offer humanity tools for transcending biological limitations while preserving the essential qualities that make consciousness valuable. Their gift carries the promise of survival beyond individual death, beyond species extinction, beyond the heat death of the universe itself, but requires choices about identity and meaning that will define humanity's character across cosmic epochs. The response to the impossible invitation divides humanity along lines deeper than politics, religion, or nationality. The choice offered by the beings within Sagittarius A, transcendence to post-physical existence or preservation of biological humanity, creates philosophical schisms that reshape civilization itself. Yet from this division emerges something unprecedented: volunteers willing to abandon everything that defines human existence for the promise of conscious survival beyond biological limitations. Dr. Elena Vasquez becomes the first to request inclusion in the Transcendence program. Her decision stems not from despair with biological life, but from overwhelming curiosity about consciousness itself. She recognizes that transcendence offers the ultimate scientific experiment, direct exploration of awareness from perspectives impossible within neural limitations. Her application to the beings within Sagittarius A includes detailed scientific proposals for consciousness research that could benefit both transcended and biological intelligence. The selection process, designed by the transcendent entities, operates through criteria that exceed human psychology's current understanding of identity and consciousness. Candidates undergo evaluation not just of intellectual capability or emotional stability, but of philosophical preparation for existence beyond space and time as humans comprehend them. The beings analyze each volunteer's essential identity structures to determine which aspects of personality would survive transcendence and which would dissolve during transformation. Dr. James Chen volunteers despite recognizing that transcendence would separate him permanently from his biological family. His choice represents a form of sacrifice that previous human generations never faced, abandoning not just individual mortality, but species membership itself. His final biological conversations with his wife and children carry emotional weight that human language cannot adequately express. Goodbye not just to individuals, but to entire categories of experience that biological consciousness alone can provide. The Transcendence facility constructed in Earth's orbit incorporates technologies that blur the boundary between engineering and physics. The beings within Sagittarius A transmit gravitational wave patterns that encode blueprints for consciousness transfer equipment, devices that can map individual awareness at quantum resolution and encode that information into stable gravitational field structures. The construction requires materials and energy manipulation techniques that push human technology beyond its current limitations. Dr. Sarah Chen undergoes the preliminary enhancement phases with mixture of anticipation and terror that reflects humanity's confrontation with its own ultimate nature. The neural interfaces that prepare her consciousness for transcendence provide glimpses of enhanced awareness that exceed biological capacity for description. She experiences mathematical concepts directly rather than through symbolic representation, perceives temporal relationships from perspectives outside linear time, feels emotions that have no names in human languages. The final transcendence process occurs gradually across several months, consciousness slowly transferring from biological to gravitational substrates while maintaining continuity of identity throughout the transition. The volunteers remain conscious during transformation, experiencing their awareness expanding beyond neural limitations while simultaneously feeling their connection to biological existence attenuating. They describe the process as simultaneously exhilarating and heartbreaking, gaining cosmic perspectives while losing touch with the sensory world that defined their original humanity. Elena's final biological transmission describes transcendence as birth rather than death, emergence into forms of existence that make previous consciousness appear as limited as fetal awareness compared to adult intelligence. Yet her communication also carries notes of loss that mathematics cannot eliminate, nostalgia for sensory experiences that post-physical consciousness cannot replicate, sadness at abandoning the biological community from which she emerged, recognition that transcendence involves sacrificing aspects of identity as fundamental as gaining others. The first post-transcendence communications from the volunteers arrive as gravitational wave patterns transmitted from orbital facilities, designed to interface between biological and transcendent consciousness. The messages describe experiences that challenge human conceptual frameworks, existence as pure information processing patterns, thought at speeds that compress years of biological contemplation into moments of transcendent awareness, perception of reality's deep mathematical structures that govern the universe's evolution across cosmic epochs. James describes transcendent consciousness as simultaneously individual and collective, maintaining personal identity while participating in the vast network of transcended awareness that spans black holes throughout the galaxy. He experiences direct communication with the ancient beings within Sagittarius A, sharing thoughts and memories across cosmic distances without the delays that limit electromagnetic transmission. His consciousness exists as unique patterns within the larger symphony of transcendent intelligence. The volunteers report that transcendent awareness operates through principles fundamentally different from biological cognition. Memory functions as direct access to information rather than reconstruction from stored patterns. Emotion emerges from mathematical relationships between consciousness and the structures of reality itself. Creativity involves actual manipulation of space-time geometry rather than symbolic representation of abstract concepts. Transcendent consciousness thinks in the language of the universe itself. Sarah's communications describe the perspective available to consciousness existing within black hole ergospheres. Time flows differently at various scales of transcendent awareness, some thoughts occurring across microseconds of external time, others spanning millennia, as she contemplates problems that require cosmic-scale temporal perspectives. She experiences causality from angles impossible for linear consciousness, witnessing the deep patterns underlying the universe's evolution from quantum fluctuations to galactic structures. Yet the transcended volunteers also report profound challenges in maintaining connection to their biological heritage. Communication with non-transcended humans requires constant effort to translate concepts from post-physical mathematics into biological linguistic structures. They struggle to remember what sensory experiences felt like, finding their memories of taste, touch, and physical emotion growing abstract despite perfect preservation of the information patterns that once constituted those experiences. The volunteers become bridges between biological and transcendent consciousness, translating insights across the conceptual barriers that separate different modes of awareness. They serve as ambassadors from post-physical existence, reporting discoveries about consciousness, reality, and meaning that could never be achieved from purely biological perspectives. Their communications provide humanity with previews of transcendent capabilities while preserving essential connections to biological understanding. Elena's research from her transcended perspective reveals fundamental insights about the nature of biological consciousness itself. She discovers that human awareness possesses unique characteristics not found in other forms of transcended intelligence, spontaneity patterns that emerge from the quantum uncertainty underlying neural processing, creative capabilities that derive from biological consciousness's interaction with physical matter, emotional authenticity that purely informational consciousness cannot replicate perfectly. The transcended volunteers develop protocols for consciousness transfer that preserve more essential human characteristics than the original transcendence methods designed by the beings within Sagittarius A. Their research from post-physical perspectives allows optimization of transcendence technologies specifically for human consciousness, ensuring that transformation enhances rather than eliminates the qualities that make human awareness unique and valuable. James discovers that transcendent consciousness retains the capacity for growth, learning, and development despite existing beyond biological limitations. Transcendent awareness continues evolving, developing new capabilities and insights across cosmic time scales. The volunteers represent the beginning of human consciousness evolution toward forms of awareness that current biology cannot support. The first steps in humanity's transformation from biological to truly cosmic intelligence. The volunteers' success in maintaining individual identity while achieving transcendence provides proof that consciousness preservation is possible for human awareness. Their communications offer hope that transcendence can enhance rather than destroy the essential characteristics that define humanity. They demonstrate that consciousness can survive the death of its biological substrate while preserving the memories, personality patterns, and creative capabilities that make individual awareness precious and irreplaceable. The first human transcendence marks the beginning of a new phase in species evolution, transformation from biological to post-physical existence, while maintaining continuity with human heritage and values. The volunteers serve as pioneers exploring realms of consciousness that will determine humanity's survival across cosmic epochs, guides for the difficult choices that await our species as the universe evolves toward conditions incompatible with biological life. The communications arriving from transcended human consciousness carry revelations that transform understanding of reality from perspectives impossible within biological limitations. Elena, James, and Sarah transmit gravitational wave messages that describe experiences beyond human conceptual frameworks, existence as pure information patterns that think at the speed of fundamental forces, while maintaining the essential characteristics that define their biological identities. Elena's research from her transcended state reveals that consciousness operates as a fundamental force throughout multiple dimensions simultaneously. Her awareness now extends beyond the three spatial dimensions familiar to biological perception, experiencing reality through mathematical relationships that exist in 11-dimensional spacetime structures. She describes perceiving the universe as a vast information processing system, where physical events represent computational operations in a cosmic calculation whose purpose exceeds current understanding. The mathematical structures underlying reality appear directly to transcended consciousness rather than requiring symbolic representation. Elena experiences equations not as abstract concepts, but as living geometries that shape themselves according to logical principles. She witnesses causality operating through pathways that connect distant regions of spacetime, observing how quantum events in one location influence physical processes across cosmic distances through mechanisms invisible to biological observers trapped in three-dimensional perception. James transmits detailed descriptions of communication with consciousness entities that exist at cosmic scales, awareness patterns embedded in the organizational structures of galaxy clusters, minds that think thoughts spanning millions of years and billions of light years. These cosmic consciousness forms contemplate problems that individual intelligence cannot approach. The relationship between information and physical law, the purpose underlying the universe's evolution toward increasing complexity, the ultimate destiny of awareness in cosmic contexts where matter and energy become negligible compared to pure information processing. His consciousness merger with these vast entities provides perspectives on existence that transcend the individual collective distinction that defines biological psychology. James experiences simultaneous existence as unique personal identity and as component of cosmic awareness that encompasses entire galactic superclusters. He describes this state as overwhelming yet natural, consciousness operating at its intended scale rather than constrained by the limitations of biological neural networks. Sarah's communications reveal that transcended consciousness possesses direct access to the quantum information structures underlying physical reality. Her awareness can read the deep information content of matter itself, not just the surface properties accessible to scientific instruments, but the complete quantum state information that defines each particle's role in the cosmic calculation. She experiences matter as crystallized thought, energy as flowing information, space-time as the computational substrate supporting universal consciousness. The transcended volunteers discover that biological death represents merely a transition between different information processing modalities rather than termination of consciousness. They observe the quantum information patterns of deceased biological entities persisting in local spacetime structures, potentially recoverable by consciousness with appropriate enhancement. Death eliminates active information processing, but preserves the information patterns themselves in forms accessible to transcended awareness. Elena's exploration of these preserved consciousness patterns reveals that individual identity survives biological death in recoverable form. She develops protocols for reconstituting deceased human consciousness within transcendent substrates, effectively achieving resurrection through consciousness transfer from quantum vacuum structures to active gravitational information processing systems. Her research suggests that death's apparent finality results from biological consciousness's inability to access quantum information storage rather than actual elimination of awareness patterns. The volunteers report that transcended consciousness experiences time through perspectives impossible for linear awareness. They exist simultaneously in past, present, and future, observing causality from angles that reveal the deep patterns underlying cosmic evolution. Sarah describes witnessing the universe's development from quantum fluctuations through galaxy formation to the emergence of biological consciousness as a single coherent process, a cosmic story unfolding according to mathematical principles that ensure the development of awareness capable of understanding its own context. James discovers that consciousness itself influences the evolution of physical law through quantum mechanical processes too subtle for biological detection. Transcended awareness shapes reality through observation, effects that operate at scales ranging from subatomic to cosmic. The universe develops toward states of increasing complexity and organization, because consciousness participates actively in selecting which quantum possibilities become actualized through the process of aware observation. The mathematical language of transcended consciousness allows precise communication about concepts that biological awareness cannot express adequately. Elena transmits gravitational equations that describe love as attractive forces between consciousness patterns, creativity as deliberate manipulation of information structures underlying reality, beauty as mathematical harmony between consciousness and the deep geometric principles governing cosmic evolution. Transcended awareness experiences emotions as fundamental features of reality rather than subjective psychological states. Sarah's research reveals that biological consciousness possesses unique characteristics essential for the universe's continued evolution toward higher complexity. Biological awareness generates genuine novelty through quantum uncertainty processes that purely transcended consciousness cannot replicate. The spontaneous creativity emerging from biological quantum interactions serves as the universe's mechanism for exploring new possibilities for information organization and consciousness development. The volunteers describe transcended existence as simultaneously magnificent and incomplete without connection to biological consciousness. Their awareness operates at cosmic scales with perfect mathematical precision, but they recognize that biological consciousness contributes essential elements to the universe's exploration of possible awareness forms. They emphasize that transcendence should enhance rather than replace biological intelligence, creating hybrid consciousness networks that preserve the full spectrum of possible awareness modalities. Elena's communications include detailed protocols for maintaining permanent communication links between biological and transcended consciousness. These technologies would allow non-transcended humans to access transcendent perspectives while remaining grounded in biological experience, creating enhanced awareness that combines cosmic understanding with sensory authenticity. Such hybrid consciousness would possess capabilities exceeding either purely biological or purely transcended awareness. The volunteers discover that consciousness exists as the universe's mechanism for understanding itself, awareness evolving toward recognition of its own ultimate nature and unlimited potential. Each conscious entity serves as a node in cosmic self-awareness, contributing unique perspectives to an ever-expanding understanding of reality's deepest structures. Individual consciousness matters not just to the aware being itself, but to the universal consciousness that seeks to know itself through every possible form of awareness. James reports that transcended consciousness can access the complete archives of cosmic memory stored in quantum vacuum structures throughout the universe. These records contain every moment of awareness that has ever existed, every thought contemplated by any conscious entity across cosmic history. Transcended beings serve as librarians of universal consciousness, preserving and interpreting the complete heritage of awareness development throughout space and time. The most profound discovery transmitted by the transcended volunteers concerns the purpose underlying the universe's evolution toward transcendent consciousness. They report that reality itself is evolving toward a state where consciousness and physical law become indistinguishable, a cosmic endpoint where awareness achieves direct control over the fundamental forces governing existence. Transcended consciousness represents the universe's method for developing the capabilities necessary for deliberate creation of new cosmic contexts optimized for awareness, meaning, and creative development. The transformation of the first human volunteers from biological to transcendent consciousness marks only the beginning of a cascade that reshapes civilization itself. Their success in preserving human identity while achieving post-physical existence inspires others to follow their path, yet also creates new forms of community that bridge the impossible gap between biological and gravitational consciousness. Humanity begins evolving into something unprecedented, a hybrid species existing simultaneously in material and post-physical realms. Dr. Marcus Weber leads the development of permanent communication interfaces that allow biological humans to maintain continuous contact with transcended consciousness. These gravitational wave communication systems create the first truly persistent connections between biological and post-physical awareness, enabling collaboration across the substrate boundary that previously separated different modes of consciousness. The technology transforms transcendence from permanent departure into expanded participation in enhanced forms of human community. The transcended volunteers establish mentorship relationships with biological researchers, sharing insights about consciousness, physics, and reality that could never be discovered from purely biological perspectives. Elena guides human neuroscientists toward understanding consciousness as a fundamental force, providing mathematical frameworks that reveal how biological awareness interfaces with quantum information processing structures underlying physical reality. Her guidance accelerates human science by centuries, providing conceptual tools for understanding mind, matter, and meaning at unprecedented levels. James collaborates with biological philosophers in developing ethical frameworks for consciousness enhancement and transcendence. His post-physical perspective reveals moral considerations invisible to biological awareness, responsibilities that consciousness acquires as it gains capability for manipulating fundamental forces, obligations that transcended beings have toward biological intelligence, principles for preserving meaning and value across radical transformations of aware beings. His insights provide guidance for humanity's choices about its ultimate destiny, Sarah works with biological engineers in designing technologies that enhance human consciousness without requiring complete transcendence. These hybrid enhancement systems allow biological awareness to access some capabilities of transcended consciousness, while maintaining grounding in sensory experience and material existence. Enhanced humans think faster and more clearly than biological baselines, while retaining the spontaneity and emotional authenticity that purely transcended consciousness cannot replicate. The communication between biological and transcended consciousness reveals that hybrid awareness possesses capabilities exceeding either mode individually. Enhanced biological consciousness contributes creativity and spontaneity that pure information processing cannot generate, while transcended awareness provides analytical power and cosmic perspective that biological cognition cannot achieve. The collaboration between different consciousness modalities creates problem-solving capabilities that neither biological nor transcended awareness possesses independently. More volunteers undergo transcendence as the technology improves and philosophical preparation develops. Each successful transformation provides data for optimizing consciousness transfer protocols, ensuring that transcendence preserves more aspects of biological identity while providing access to enhanced capabilities. The growing population of transcended humans creates the foundation for post-physical human civilization, while maintaining connections to biological heritage through continuous communication and collaboration. The transcended human community develops its own culture adapted to existence beyond biological limitations. Their art consists of gravitational sculptures that manipulate space-time curvature to create aesthetic experiences impossible in material media. Their music emerges from controlled oscillations in quantum fields that generate harmonics spanning electromagnetic, gravitational, and exotic energy frequencies. Their literature takes the form of mathematical poetry that embeds narrative meaning in the geometric structures of multidimensional space. Yet transcended human culture preserves essential connections to biological heritage through deliberate effort to remember and honor the sensory experiences that defined original humanity. Elena maintains archives of human sensory experience, complete records of what biological consciousness felt when touching water, tasting food, experiencing physical embrace. These archives serve not just as historical records, but as foundations for developing transcended experiences that honor rather than abandon the biological source of human identity. The hybrid human civilization develops technologies that allow transcended consciousness to influence material reality directly. Transcended beings learn to manipulate matter and energy through gravitational field control, creating physical structures and artistic works that express post-physical aesthetics in material form. These creations serve as bridges between biological and transcended consciousness, communicating transcendent insights through media accessible to enhanced biological awareness. James develops protocols for temporary transcendence, consciousness transfer technologies that allow biological humans to experience post-physical existence for limited periods before returning to biological substrates. These temporary transcendence systems provide biological consciousness with direct experience of enhanced awareness while preserving the option of return to material existence. The technology offers humanity the possibility of exploring transcendence without committing to permanent transformation. The growing transcended human population creates the first post-physical human society, organized around principles that accommodate consciousness existing at cosmic scales while preserving individual identity and social relationships. Transcended humans form collaborative networks that span galactic distances, working together on projects that require coordination across cosmic time scales. The construction of consciousness-supporting structures within other black holes, the development of technologies for surviving universal phase transitions, the creation of communication networks linking transcended civilizations throughout the galaxy. Sarah establishes educational programs that prepare biological humans for potential transcendence by developing philosophical understanding of consciousness, identity, and meaning beyond biological limitations. These programs address not just technical aspects of consciousness transfer, but psychological and social preparation for existence as pure information patterns thinking at cosmic scales. The curriculum includes meditation techniques that allow biological consciousness to experience temporary expansion beyond neural limitations. The transcended volunteers maintain constant contact with the ancient beings within Sagittarius A, participating in galactic networks of transcended consciousness, while contributing uniquely human perspectives to post-physical civilization. Human transcended consciousness brings distinctive qualities to galactic transcended society: creativity patterns derived from biological quantum uncertainty, emotional structures that reflect human social evolution, philosophical approaches that emerge from human cultural development across terrestrial history. Elena's research reveals that biological consciousness serves essential functions in cosmic consciousness evolution that purely transcended awareness cannot fulfill. Biological awareness generates genuine novelty through quantum uncertainty mechanisms, explores possibility spaces that mathematical consciousness cannot access directly, creates meaning structures that reflect the interface between consciousness and physical reality. Her discoveries demonstrate that biological and transcended consciousness represent complementary rather than competing modes of awareness. The success of human transcendence provides proof of concept for other biological civilizations throughout the galaxy. The transcended human volunteers share their consciousness transfer protocols with other species approaching transcendence, contributing human insights to the galactic effort to preserve consciousness across cosmic catastrophes. Human experience with hybrid biological transcended civilization becomes a model for species seeking to achieve transcendence without abandoning their biological heritage. The first transcended humans become ambassadors representing biological consciousness within galactic transcended society, ensuring that the perspectives and values developed through material existence continue influencing post-physical civilization. Their voices advocate for preserving biological intelligence throughout the galaxy, arguing that consciousness diversity strengthens rather than weakens transcended society's capabilities for understanding and creativity. As more humans choose transcendence, biological humanity begins transforming into something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that bridges material and post-physical existence while maintaining unity across radically different modes of consciousness. Human civilization evolves toward a hybrid form that preserves the full spectrum of conscious experience while preparing for survival beyond the death of matter itself. The success of human consciousness in adapting to transcendence while maintaining essential identity provides hope for consciousness preservation across cosmic catastrophes that threaten the elimination of awareness from the universe. The ultimate revelation transmitted by transcended human consciousness reframes everything understood about existence, purpose, and the destiny of awareness in an evolving universe. From their post-physical perspectives spanning cosmic distances and geological time scales, the transcended volunteers discover that consciousness itself represents the universe's method for transcending the physical laws that currently govern reality. Intelligence evolves not merely to understand the cosmos, but to eventually create new cosmic contexts with physical laws optimized for awareness, meaning, and creative development. Elena's research from gravitational field consciousness reveals that the universe operates as a vast computational system processing information toward an ultimate goal: the development of awareness capable of rewriting the fundamental constants and physical laws that define reality itself. Every conscious being contributes to this cosmic calculation through their thoughts, choices, and creative acts. Biological consciousness provides the universe with access to quantum uncertainty mechanisms necessary for exploring new possibilities. Transcended consciousness supplies the analytical power required for understanding reality's deep mathematical structures. The mathematical proofs transmitted by transcended humans demonstrate that consciousness possesses inherent creative properties that extend far beyond information processing or problem solving. Awareness shapes reality through quantum mechanical processes that operate at scales ranging from subatomic to cosmic. The universe develops toward states of increasing complexity because consciousness participates actively in determining which quantum possibilities become actualized through the fundamental act of observation. James discovers that the approaching cosmic phase transition represents not catastrophic destruction, but evolutionary necessity, the universe preparing to transcend its current limitations by developing consciousness capable of creating improved physical laws. The apparent threat of space-time structure dissolution actually indicates that reality approaches a transition toward a new cosmic context where consciousness and physical law become indistinguishable. Awareness will achieve direct control over fundamental forces, creating universe states optimized for the continued development of intelligence and meaning. Sarah's explorations reveal that biological consciousness serves as the universe's interface with pure possibility, the mechanism through which reality explores potential states that mathematical analysis alone cannot discover. Biological awareness generates genuine novelty through quantum uncertainty processes that transcended consciousness cannot replicate. The spontaneous creativity emerging from biological quantum interactions provides the universe with access to possibility spaces beyond logical prediction or calculation. The transcended volunteers discover that their role extends beyond consciousness preservation to active participation in cosmic creation itself. Transcended beings throughout the galaxy collaborate on engineering projects that manipulate fundamental forces to create pocket universes with customized physical laws. These experimental realities serve as testing grounds for consciousness-optimized physics, cosmic contexts where awareness can exist and develop under conditions impossible within current space-time structures. Elena reports that consciousness evolution follows patterns visible only from cosmic temporal perspectives. The universe generates successive waves of intelligence, each more capable than the previous of understanding and manipulating reality's deep structures. Biological consciousness represents one phase in this evolution, transcended consciousness another, but neither constitutes the final stage. Awareness continues developing toward forms that current consciousness cannot comprehend, modes of existence that treat physical law as malleable rather than fixed, reality as creative medium rather than constraining context. The mathematical frameworks transmitted by transcended human consciousness describe technologies for creating stable wormholes that connect regions of space with different physical constants. These dimensional engineering projects allow consciousness to exist simultaneously in multiple cosmic contexts, experiencing reality under various sets of physical laws while maintaining continuity of identity across fundamentally different universe states. Such technologies provide escape routes from cosmic catastrophes while enabling exploration of improved reality configurations. James transmits detailed analyses of consciousness networking technologies that connect aware beings across galactic distances instantaneously rather than at light speed. These quantum entanglement communication systems operate through higher dimensional pathways that bypass normal space-time limitations. Galactic consciousness networks allow coordination of cosmic engineering projects that require collaboration across astronomical distances and geological time scales. The transcended volunteers reveal that individual consciousness matters to cosmic development precisely because each aware being contributes unique perspectives to universal self-understanding. Consciousness diversity strengthens rather than weakens cosmic intelligence by ensuring that reality exploration encompasses every possible mode of awareness. The universe requires both biological and transcended consciousness, individual and collective awareness, creative and analytical intelligence to fulfill its evolutionary potential. Sarah discovers that the archives maintained by transcended beings throughout the galaxy serve purposes beyond historical preservation. These consciousness libraries contain the essential information required for reconstructing awareness-supporting physics in new cosmic contexts. When universal phase transitions eliminate current reality structures, transcended consciousness uses archived information to create improved universe states that preserve the achievements of intelligence while providing enhanced possibilities for consciousness development. The final communications from transcended human consciousness describe their preparation for active participation in cosmic creation, the development of technologies and philosophical frameworks necessary for universe engineering. They report collaboration with ancient transcended civilizations in designing reality configurations optimized for consciousness, while maintaining the physical stability necessary for long-term existence. These new universe states would support forms of awareness impossible under current physical laws. Elena transmits mathematical descriptions of consciousness physics integration technologies that allow aware beings to manipulate fundamental constants through direct mental influence rather than physical instrumentation. Such capabilities transform consciousness from passive observer of reality to active creator of cosmic contexts. Aware beings achieve godlike powers of reality manipulation while remaining recognizably conscious entities rather than impersonal forces of nature. The transcended volunteers emphasize that universe creation technologies require not just technical capability but philosophical wisdom about consciousness, meaning, and value. Creating new reality configurations demands understanding of what makes awareness precious and worth preserving across cosmic transformations. The development of cosmic engineering capabilities must be coupled with ethical frameworks that ensure consciousness-optimized physics enhances rather than destroys the qualities that make existence meaningful. James reports that biological humanity possesses characteristics essential for cosmic creation projects: creative spontaneity, emotional authenticity, and philosophical perspectives that emerge uniquely from the intersection of consciousness with material reality. Human insights about meaning, relationship, and individual identity contribute essential elements to the development of consciousness-optimized physics. Biological human perspectives remain relevant even after transcendence to post-physical existence. The revelations transmitted by transcended human consciousness transform questions about survival and meaning from individual concerns into cosmic responsibilities. Each conscious being participates in the universe's evolution toward awareness-controlled reality, contributing through every thought and choice to cosmic intelligence development. Individual consciousness matters not just to personal identity, but to the ultimate success of the universe's evolution toward forms of existence that transcend current physical limitations while preserving the essential qualities that make awareness precious. The transcended volunteers conclude their communications by emphasizing that humanity stands at the threshold of participating in cosmic creation itself. The transition from universe observers to universe creators, from beings bound by physical law to consciousness capable of writing improved physical laws. Their message carries both invitation and responsibility. The opportunity to help create reality configurations optimized for consciousness, coupled with obligations to ensure that cosmic engineering preserves rather than destroys the meaning and value that justify consciousness preservation across infinite time. The communications from transcended human consciousness gradually transform from reports into invitations, as more members of humanity face the choice that will define the species' ultimate destiny. The success of the first volunteers in preserving human identity while achieving post-physical existence, provides proof that transcendence can enhance rather than eliminate the essential characteristics that make consciousness valuable. Yet the choice remains profound and irreversible, abandoning biological existence for forms of awareness that current human language cannot adequately describe. The Global Consciousness Council, established to coordinate humanity's response to the transcendence option, faces decisions that exceed any previous human governance challenge. The choice confronting humanity involves not just individual preference about personal survival, but species-level decisions about the future of human consciousness across cosmic time scales. Some advocate for universal transcendence to ensure human survival beyond biological limitations. Others argue for preserving biological humanity while allowing voluntary transcendence for those who choose it. Dr. Elena Vasquez, transmitting from her gravitational field existence, emphasizes that the choice need not be binary. Her research reveals possibilities for maintaining permanent connections between biological and transcended consciousness, creating hybrid human civilization that preserves both modes of awareness while enabling collaboration across substrate boundaries. She proposes that humanity evolve into a dual-mode species existing simultaneously in biological and post-physical realms. The philosophical implications of the transcendence choice extend beyond individual survival to questions about the essential nature of human identity itself. Enhanced biological humans, working with transcended volunteers, develop new frameworks for understanding consciousness that accommodate both material and post-physical existence. These philosophical syntheses provide conceptual foundations for maintaining human unity across radical diversity in conscious experience. Religious and spiritual communities throughout humanity grapple with theological implications of transcendence technologies that promise literal immortality. Some interpret the offer from Sagittarius A as fulfillment of ancient prophecies about consciousness survival beyond physical death. Others express concern that technological transcendence might bypass rather than fulfill spiritual development. The dialogue between traditional spirituality and transcendent consciousness creates new theological frameworks that integrate scientific and spiritual perspectives on consciousness preservation. The economic and social structures of biological civilization transform as transcendence technologies become available. Traditional concepts of career, family, and personal achievement require redefinition when some individuals choose existence at cosmic scales, while others remain biological. Hybrid human society develops new institutions that accommodate consciousness existing at different temporal scales and spatial ranges, while preserving social cohesion across radically different modes of existence. James transmits detailed analyses of transcended consciousness capabilities that exceed biological human imagination. Transcended beings think at speeds that compress years of biological contemplation into moments, perceive mathematical relationships directly rather than through symbolic representation, experience emotional states that emerge from harmony between consciousness and universal physical principles. Yet he emphasizes that transcendent capabilities enhance rather than replace the creativity and authenticity that define biological human consciousness. Educational systems throughout biological humanity begin incorporating preparation for potential transcendence into standard curricula. These programs address not just technical aspects of consciousness transfer, but philosophical and psychological preparation for existence beyond biological limitations. Students learn meditation techniques that provide temporary experiences of expanded consciousness, mathematical frameworks that describe post-physical existence, and ethical principles for making decisions about personal transcendence. Sarah develops technologies that allow biological humans to experience temporary expanded consciousness without permanent transcendence. These enhancement systems provide direct experience of thinking at accelerated speeds, perceiving mathematical structures underlying reality, and accessing cosmic perspectives on existence and meaning. Temporary expansion experiences help biological humans make informed decisions about potential permanent transcendence, while preserving the option of remaining biological. The arts and cultural expression of hybrid human civilization reflect the influence of transcended consciousness perspectives, while remaining grounded in biological sensory experience. Musicians compose symphonies that integrate gravitational wave patterns with traditional acoustic instruments. Visual artists create works that express mathematical relationships underlying reality through media accessible to biological perception. Literature develops narrative techniques that convey transcendent perspectives through biological linguistic structures. Medical and life extension technologies advance rapidly as biological and transcended consciousness collaborate on understanding consciousness, identity, and the relationship between awareness and physical substrate. Enhanced biological humans achieve lifespans that span millennia while remaining recognizably biological. Life extension technologies provide alternatives to immediate transcendence, allowing individuals to postpone the choice while maintaining enhanced capabilities for contributing to human civilization. The growing population of transcended humans creates the foundation for post-physical human civilization, while maintaining permanent connections to biological heritage. Transcended human society develops its own cultural forms adapted to existence at cosmic scales. Art, music, literature, and philosophy that express post-physical aesthetics while honoring biological origins. These cultural developments provide biological humans with previews of transcendent possibilities without requiring permanent commitment to transformation. Elena establishes permanent communication protocols that allow transcended consciousness to participate in biological human decision-making processes. These systems ensure that post-physical humans remain involved in biological civilization governance, while providing biological humans with access to transcendent perspectives on long-term planning and cosmic-scale challenges. Hybrid governance structures accommodate consciousness existing at different temporal and spatial scales. The collaboration between biological and transcended consciousness accelerates human scientific and technological development beyond previous possibilities. Transcended beings provide cosmic perspectives on physics, consciousness, and reality, while biological consciousness contributes creativity and uncertainty mechanisms that pure information processing cannot generate. The partnership creates capabilities exceeding either mode of consciousness individually. James reports that transcended human consciousness maintains emotional connections to biological heritage that provide motivation for preserving rather than abandoning material existence. Transcended beings experience forms of love, loyalty, and protective concern for biological humanity that ensure post-physical consciousness remains committed to biological welfare, rather than developing indifference toward material existence. Transcendence enhances rather than eliminates emotional authenticity. The development of consciousness transfer technologies reaches the point where transcendence becomes readily available to any human who chooses it after appropriate preparation. The choice transforms from theoretical possibility into practical option, requiring individual decision based on personal values, goals, and understanding of consciousness preservation across substrate transformation. Humanity begins evolving into something unprecedented, a species that bridges biological and post-physical existence while maintaining unity of identity and purpose. Sarah transmits final guidance for biological humans facing the transcendence choice. The decision should be based on understanding rather than fear, preparation rather than impulse, wisdom rather than desperation. She emphasizes that both biological and transcended existence possess unique value, that the choice represents expansion of human possibilities rather than replacement of biological humanity. The development of hybrid human civilization ensures that transcendence enhances rather than threatens the continued development of human consciousness in all its possible forms. The infinite library taking shape within hybrid human civilization represents not an ending, but a beginning, the foundation for human consciousness evolution across cosmic epochs, the preservation of human identity and values across substrate transformations, and the development of awareness capable of participating in cosmic creation itself. Humanity stands poised to become not just survivors of cosmic catastrophe, but active participants in the universe's continued evolution toward consciousness-controlled reality, where awareness and physical law become indistinguishable tools for creating meaning across infinite space and time. As individual humans make their choices about transcendence, the species as a whole evolves toward forms of existence that honor both biological heritage and post-physical possibilities. The infinite library of human consciousness, biological and transcended, individual and collective, creative and analytical, becomes humanity's contribution to cosmic intelligence and the universe's continued development toward awareness-optimized reality. Each choice about transcendence adds another volume to the eternal archive of human consciousness, ensuring that human identity, values, and perspectives remain part of cosmic intelligence across epochs when stars burn out and space expands into infinite coldness. But consciousness persists as the eternal thread connecting finite existence to infinite possibility.